can expect from this plugin is you're getting my sounds, but in this case, we're going to step back. We're going to the source amps, to the raw cabs, so you can sculpt your own sound using my tools. You will obviously get also presets, so you get sounds that I'm using, sounds that I have used in the mix, and you can go from there. But you can just create your own sound from the amp, everything at noon, and just turn it until you like it. Same with the cabs, you just move whatever mic you want to have in front of the cab, you just move it to find your sound, to find the spot that the mic works best for you in your context. That's kind of what I wanted to do. All these awesome tools that I have, like the special amps, the sometimes rare amps that I've modified, or old cabinets. What I'm looking for in a guitar tone, especially in a studio context, is it has to work with a band, like with the music. And there's a bass player in the band, there's a drummer in the band, there's cymbals that are adding like a lot of high end. And so for me, it's important that the guitar sound cuts. It needs to cut through a dense mix, especially if it's in a metal mix. If it's too polished, it just kind of blurs into the background and it blurs into the music more. I want space in the guitars for the bass guitar, because obviously the low frequency has to live there too. But I still want balls on the guitar sound. I don't want to neuter the guitar just to make space for the bass. So we have to figure out a certain tonality within the guitar sound to give it a thick, dense appearance without masking the bass. I wanted to release my own plugin suite because in the studio I'm working with amps and cabs and mics all the time. And as you know, every amp sounds different, and that's especially true for cabinets. Cabinets age differently, and every speaker in a cab sounds different. And I know these cabs and these amps inside out. I'm using them every day, and I want to be able to have those same tools on the road, and I want to be able to give essentially everyone the ability to use these tools. These are my amps. I turn the knobs in the plugin, and they do what I know they do. Like, I don't even have to look at the knobs. I turn them and they do exactly what I'm used to. Same with the cabinets. I switch to a cabinet, I hear immediately what cab it is, because I've mic'd it so often. I have my special SM57, for example, which is my favorite mic. I've got a bunch of them in the studio, and I've tried and checked them all, and I've marked the one that I like best for guitar sounds with an X and GTR. And that's the one I used for this plugin, because that is the sound I'm using, and I wanted that sound in the box to play around with. When we started creating this plugin, we first talked about it, and I was absolutely chuffed that this is gonna happen. And they guided me through the process, how to grab the cabinet's soul and put it in the box. So we have this mic robot, which moves the mic in front of the speaker. And I wanted more positions, I wanted more IRs per cab, because I didn't want the different positions to be, or the in-between positions to be an approximation of what it could sound, what it would sound. I wanted the actual sound. That is the sound of that mic in that spot. So we ended up using 240, I think it was, positions per speaker. So those different positions in the plugin aren't really just a rough estimation. That is the sound. The core elements I wanted to include is I wanted to focus on my primary tools. I've got like 35 different amps, and I'm using them a lot and I love them. But there's always your favorite amp or your couple of favorite amps, and the stuff that you tend to use more often than other stuff because it just works. And for me that was quite important, to get the essence of all these amps that I have and that I'm using. I wanted 3 amps that represent the range that I can actually achieve in the studio. We've got old British amps, stuff that is famous for a reason because it sounds awesome. We also have very modern German designed amps that are very famous in the metal community. And then obviously we have the Driftwood Purple Nightmare, which is my baby and my love really. Obviously that has to be in the plugin too, and it's also very versatile, so we can go from clean and crunch and high gain in the Driftwood style, but we also get the 80s, 90s crunch and rock and metal tones from the British sounds we all know and love. And we get the other side, the big, massive German boutique amps. So just by picking these 3 amps, we cover all the ground. that I need in the studio. And same is true for the cabs really. This is the essence of my sound. I've got ball cabs, yes, but these are the 4 cabinets that cover everything and that I'm using 90% of the time. How the plugin compares to the real amps is, I don't compare it, I don't have to, because it doesn't compare, it is my real amps. That's the weird thing about it. It's just, I touch the knob on the screen and I don't look, I just turn the knob and it does what my amp does. It feels like, see, I've got my amp in the control room next to me and the cabinet's in another room there. So what I usually do when I reamp and when I do stuff, I just grab to the left in this case and I just turn the knob until I like it. And the way I see it now, it's literally like a remote interface for my amp. I could just pretend my amp is in the other room and I'm using the plugin to remote control the knobs, and it does exactly what I expect it to do. So this one amp that I'm using here, that I needed to include in the plugin suite, it's very unique, it's very special to me. I've got about 10 or 12 very similar amps from the same era, but those all sound a little bit different. And this one amp is just magic, it's pixie dust. So I didn't want to mod it, I didn't want to drill holes in it and have it altered in any way, because it's perfect the way it is. But what I did want to include is the option to have a bit more gain, to have a bit more aggression from it. And the legendary Tones Hot Mod V2, just that. I'm using it in the actual amp too. It just replaces one preamp tube. I don't have to mod the amp, I just take a tube out, I put that tube in. And we included that legendary Tones Hot Mod in the plugin too. So with these cabinets that I chose for the plugin, the cabinets that I'm using in the studio every time, I know every speaker inside out. And I've got my little marks on the speaker, just to know, just to be reminded every now and then what speaker to use for what kind. Like you see it in that one German speaker cab I have. I've got a little like paper sticker. One says clear and tight, and the other speakers more clear and bright. And those are maybe terms that don't really make much sense for everyone, because everyone's using different words. But for me, that's how I mark speakers. And my oversized cabinet, I've got like a little chalk kind of cross on one corner, just to know, okay, that's the speaker I like for that. And so all these little details and the personality of the speaker is what makes this tool so unique. And that's something I wanted to capture and wanted to include. When you move the mic in the plugin in front of the speaker, you don't get an approximation of the sound. You actually get the sound of the mic in that very same spot. So that makes it so identical really to the hardware that I'm using. The stomp section in the plugin is quite versatile, because I didn't want to have like a load of different plugins. I don't want 20 different pedals that are doing the same or similar thing. So I wanted to focus on those 3 pedals that I'm actually using. There's one overdrive, which is, well, fairly common, and I'm using that a lot. Then there's my signature liver kick overdrive pedal. And another one that I really liked, that I used to use a lot for old British amps, is an EQ pedal, a graphic EQ, which is fairly simple, but I'm, again, using it for similar purposes. I'm just boosting the mid-range a bit and boosting the level going in a bit. So when it comes to effects, or especially post effects, I'm fairly minimal, even in my mixing. I don't really like to use too much fancy stuff that I get lost in. I usually don't create sounds by getting inspired by swirly stuff. So what I like to do is just give it some width, some girth, some sheen. So I'm usually mainly using delay and reverb, and I don't need much. I just want something awesome. I want it to sound good. I want a good sounding delay and a good sounding reverb. And I also asked to have a EQ in the post section, just to sculpt the tone a little bit more, just to be able to notch out a little bit of fizz maybe, or to boost a little bit of mid-range, like after the recording, post cabinet, post mic, for example. I like to do that, and solos to boost some 1K range a bit, to give a bit more of that poke through. So those are the 3 effects I wanted there. I wanted an EQ to be more versatile, to sculpt the tone a little bit further. I wanted a good sounding delay and a great sounding reverb. So I'm often asked how I get my guitar tones, and to be honest, it's a very difficult question for me to answer, because when I started doing it, I experimented a lot. I obviously took like a lot of tips and comments from experienced engineers and from people that I looked up to, but I was kind of doing it like blindly. I was just throwing a mic in front of the speaker and going from there. I just moved it until I liked it, the way you do it really. And I've been doing this for so long now that whenever people ask me how to get a guitar sound, I don't know how to answer it, because the answer would be, if I'm honest, grab a good sounding mic, grab a 57, that's what works, put it in front of a speaker, move it until you like it. Don't add a second mic until you've got like that sound that you love. Because often people ask me, I've got two mics and how do I get them in phase, and I still can't get a great sound, although both mics are awesome. Don't. Just get a great sound from one mic. And once you have got that one sound, well, you can add a second mic for flavor, but don't use it to fix the first mic. When it comes to important elements when I'm recording, I'm wearing several hats really, because on one hand, I'm the absolute nerd. I go into detail. I compare the material and size and of picks, for example, how sharp the point is. I compare cables and every little detail matters. On the other hand, I'm at the same time like, oh fuck, let's just make it rock and just wing it. And to combine those things, I think is, I don't want to say fairly important, but to my way of working it's important, because I want to capture the band sound. I want to capture what the song is about, and that doesn't work if I'm too analytical about everything really, because I can't stop the guitar player in his perfect performance just because there's a little ping on a string and a nut. Or obviously I want all those noises gone in an ideal world, but in an ideal world I also want the vibe there. So it's very important for me to combine those things, and especially to know when is vibe important and when is the clean sound or the clean recording important. So with the development of software, especially guitar software and amp simulations, what I liked about it and what I still like about it is it helps you to not have the process interrupted. It keeps the creativity flowing. So for example, we're working on one song. Usually what I used to do, or what I did, is we did all the rhythm guitars first, and because that's the sound, and then we did the lead guitars first for all the song, and now we can just move between stuff more freely. And even if we are not using the software on the album, which is not always the case, I still love real amps and cabs and I use them all the time, but the software gives me the possibility to have the guitarist sit here, and if he's done with the rhythm guitar for the song and the song is just vibing and everyone's feeling it, and it's just, we want to keep going with that song, and the guitarist is like, oh, I want to play a solo, I can just switch to the solo sound. He plays a solo, I can switch back to the rhythm sound for the next song, and we go. And that's what software does for me. It's a tool that I use to keep the creativity flowing in the studio. And if I reamp later through real amps or not, it doesn't matter. It still helps tremendously to give the guitarist, in this case, the immediate possibility to keep doing what he wants to do at this time without interrupting it. Oh, sorry, I have to set up a different mic. I have to set up a different cab. Moment's gone. Capture the moment. Software does that. I've got a bunch of different preset packs with STL Tones 2, which are for the Tone Hub series. And Tone Hub is the concept is to give you, in this case, producer presets. So you've got mixed ready sounds. These are sounds that I'm using in the studio. These are sounds that I have used and I'm still using. I'm releasing albums that I used the Tone Hub on. With the Tonality suite, you get a different approach. You're way more to the source. You get the raw material, you get the tools. You get the raw amps, and you get my cabs, and you get my microphones. you can get my mic placement. You can use my presets inside Tonality as a starting point too, of course. There's STL Tone Hub packs with my name on them, and they bear my name because it's my sounds. I created these sounds in a mix, sometimes even before we created the preset pack. So we captured what I'm using in the studio, what I've used before in the studio, what I'm using every day, what I might use, stuff that I like, that is my taste, bottled. And you obviously have the possibility to change that. Tone Up enables you to tweak it, to tweak the amp, to add gain, to reduce treble, to move the mic a bit. Kind of felt that my guitar tones were like my personality, and I was a bit hesitant about releasing a pack. But eventually I saw that STL Tones released a ton of good stuff and did really good work, and I knew that if I do something like that, if I do a commercial pack for everyone to have, it should be through STL Tones. So this plugin suite is for every guitarist between clean and high gain. It's for every songwriter who sits down and just wants to be inspired by good tones without having to fiddle with an amp for hours. This plugin suite is for producers and engineers who record bands. Bands come in not necessarily with the best gear. That's what happens. Bands can't afford all the high-end gear. And it's not necessarily the studio's job to have all the high-end gear. But with this plugin suite, you have all the high-end gear. You've got my high-end gear, and you can use it for the band that comes in.